Hi everyone, I'm so excited to share this video with you today. A few weeks ago, I attended CIX Summit in Toronto, and I heard a pitch that really left an impression on me. I thought it was one of the best uses of empathy to hook an audience and tell a great story. The startup was Uvaro, and the presenter was Joseph Fung, co-founder and CEO. Joseph is a serial entrepreneur with multiple startups under his belt, including Tribe HR, which he sold to NetSuite. I've known Joseph for a long time, but it's been years since we connected. I reached out and he agreed to let me share his video here and then to join me in a conversation so we could talk about his thought process creating his pitch. Joseph is a super thoughtful and insightful founder. I think you're really going to enjoy hearing what he has to say. So let's start by watching his pitch.
It's so exciting that we all get to be here sharing our visions and discussing these really exciting visions of the future. But I'd like everyone here to take a moment to reflect on and think about the fact that for millions of people, the future is not so exciting. We've seen the headlines, we've seen the stats, but if we dig down and level deeper, it's even more alarming. In fact, every year for the last 25 years, half of Canadians and Americans have seen their real income decline over the previous year. Career regression is actually the new norm. And we need to ask ourselves, how did we get here? Now, everyone here in the room faces their own barriers to their own career progression. Maybe it's being a woman in a male-dominated tech industry. Maybe it's being a newcomer to the country and having no Canadian work experience. Maybe it's having a disability, leading people to make unfair judgments. I share these perspectives to highlight the fact that the people we serve at Uvaro are everyday people, like everyone here, facing challenges in their journey to career success. However, unlike everyone here, the members Uvaro serve don't have access. They don't have an integrated network. They don't know the jargon, and they aren't able to translate their careers, their experience, their skills into lucrative job opportunities in emerging industries. Their career success journey is a lonely one. Solo, often facing fear, despair, zigzagging back and forth, gig to gig, and we believe that they deserve something different. That career success is best achieved when you have a partner walking alongside you, focused on your needs to help you succeed. And that's what we're doing. We're on a mission to help the world's professionals achieve more fulfilling careers from their first job to their last. And we're just getting started, but we've cracked the code to career success. Uvaro members are realizing unprecedented employment outcomes, job satisfaction, income growth. We've built the most successful career success platform in the world. Now, the problem, once you see it, is massive, and the way we've solved it is unique. Our online platform delivers digital reskilling, job matching, and an ongoing community of mentors, peers, and coaches to not only help people land incredible jobs, but also thrive in them. Now, this problem is global, and we wanted to start with a thin slice, but even focusing on B2B sales-related careers, it's a $100 billion problem. Now, there are vendors, there are companies that try to solve aspects of this problem. And if anybody here has been on a job search, or someone in your family or a friend has been, you've seen some of these. Maybe you consider going back to school. You look at jobs on an online database. You talk to a recruiter. You ask for advice on something like Reddit. You try and network your way into a backdoor interview. The challenge is these fragmented solutions result in disappointing outcomes. And moreover, the bigger challenge is most of these solutions don't serve the individual. They serve the employer. We've turned the model on its head. By delivering a holistic solution focused on the individual, we see outcomes like this. And my favorite part about Flavia's story is when she posted this to LinkedIn with a photo, she commented how she took her university degree out of the gold frame to put in her Uvaro diploma because it was that meaningful a milestone for her. Now, what makes this really doable and what makes us different is we recognize career success is not a point-in-time transaction. It's a recurring activity. You're challenged, you learn, you advance, and you do it again. Let me share one story to make it a little bit more real. Matt graduated with a poli-sci degree, got a role as a bartender, quickly promoted bar manager, restaurant manager during COVID, was laid off after 8 years, laid off with 95% of the people at the hotel chain he was at. He joined Uvaro, made use of our services, took a few of our courses, did our residency, landed a role selling technology to bar and restaurant managers. It's no surprise that he was promoted quickly, rapid succession. He's been tapped for leadership opportunities. He's continued to work with our career coaches. And yes, he's earning way more money. He's buying a house. But if you talk to him and you say, what's your life like now? He talks about getting weekends. He doesn't have to work every Friday, Saturday night now and hope against hope that no one runs away on their tab or a fight breaks out. This story is repeatable for 72 million more people in Canada and US. Our members are starting at companies like this. They're more than doubling their income, and they're achieving unprecedented success. And it's happening to the people who have the most barriers. Half our members are women, 80% are racialized, many of them are single parents. And what actually makes this doable is the community. By really focusing on a community of like-minded peers who are looking to get more out of their career, it makes us more scalable, establishes a barrier against competition, more importantly, holds them and us accountable to their ongoing success. Because this community is the secret sauce. And together with our members, we're building and leading the career success category. Thank you so much for letting me share more about Uvaro.
I want to get into really the storytelling, but I have to ask you, have you always been a good presenter verbally on stage? Is this something that comes naturally to you?
Definitely not naturally. I mean, it was very deliberate, but I think I tuned into it as something I wanted to be good at really early on. So in high school, did Toastmasters. One of my first mentors with my first company was a remarkably accomplished speaker, and I benefited from a lot of the coaching from folks in that community.
So you would recommend that if people were struggling with live presentation skills to practice, maybe get some training like Toastmasters?
Totally. I mean, communities like Toastmasters are a great place to practice, but also just getting a good mentor or a coach to critique and help you hone it in will really accelerate. It's like, this didn't work for me, but I hear people learning how to play golf. They go and do a few private lessons and it really helps accelerate their growth.
Yeah.
It works for my speaking, not for my golf game.
The first thing that popped into my mind after you got off stage was I felt a strong sense of empathy with what you're doing and the mission. And I felt you had a very strong sense of empathy with what you're doing and your mission, obviously. But was that on purpose? And has that always been a big part of your journey?
Very much so. I mean, each of the businesses that I've run or co-founded, the consistent thread has been building really great places to work where people can do their best work. The last company we did was in the HR space, and so we tried to do that in the software. And now we actually get to do it through the whole solution.
And when you were putting together this story, because I'm sure you've done lots of versions of it, like most founders, was it a conscious choice that you said, I want this story to be about empathy versus there's many other ways you could have talked about technology, the market, the growth potential of your startup? Was that a conscious choice?
It was extremely conscious, but it wasn't my idea. I saw my co-founder, Donna, speaking about the company the week before, and hearing the way she led with empathy first. For her, it was her own journey, and then our members really helped me realize that starting from that point holds the entire conversation together way better.
And it's something that I see right from the problem slide or the opening. There's a lack of empathy, right? So the story doesn't have the glue, and maybe the rest of the story, the tech is great, the traction is amazing, but a lot of founders have skipped over the why should I care? One of the reasons that I really enjoyed your pitch was that from really the first slide, right at the beginning, you kind of hooked the audience. And I want to talk to you about that as well, because I really liked at the beginning, you're in a tech conference. So everyone is a tech entrepreneur. You mentioned like visionaries, they're VCs, and you almost challenged the audience. You said, it's so great that we're all visionaries here and things are going great. Even though there's some things not going great in tech land, but relatively speaking, we're pretty fortunate. And then you said, but consider how the other half lives, or consider how other people are struggling. Is that a tactic that you often use, or is that something that you maybe tailor for different audiences?
It's both new, but also was tailored for the audience. In all honesty, that specific part, that first slide, that opening is what I was most anxious about in the whole talk. You're right. Like, it's a huge juxtaposition, the lived experience of the people in the room versus the members that we're supporting. In all of my previous companies, and even in this business, if I'm speaking to someone, I'm pitching a product that they can inherently empathize with.
Yeah.
That was harder in this case. When my co-founder was presenting, she was able to anchor on her own experience as a woman in tech, as somebody who's overcoming challenges, as a person of color as well.
Mm.
And for this room and this audience, I struggled a lot with trying to find the right way to trigger that empathy, and chose to anchor on that idea of a challenge. And I'm glad that it worked out. So I'm happy that you picked up on that, because it was intentional and super tough, and I wasn't sure how it was going to land. It's always interesting seeing the way an audience reacts, because on the one hand, it's a story of trial and tribulation, but on the other hand, it's also an amazing story of accomplishment and success. And so
Yes.
trying to challenge people to feel the difficulty and the pain, but then also really feel the success that our members feel. It's a fun challenge as a speaker.
I noticed that, more than many pitches I've seen, you really used and went back to case studies. So Flavia, the woman who replaced her university degree with a Uvaro certificate, and then Matt, obviously, and in a few other cases, you kept coming back to that. And I wanted to ask you, why did you decide that of all the different ways you could have told different parts of your story, why did you think that case studies were really the best? Because I would say that somebody's first impression, maybe reading the deck without getting the benefit of your pitch, might have said, boy, there's so many case studies here, just get to the point.
In our case, one of the things we wanted to really emphasize was that Uvaro is a very human business, and we're affecting human lives. And you can't really do that with just one or two stories. Also, the membership that we have is extremely diverse. You have different genders, people from different backgrounds, different ages, economic situations, and showing that variety in the slides was really important. More personally, though, one of the things that I struggle with, and it's so important, is that everyone that joins Uvaro has their own challenge. And some of the challenges are extremely profound, and it's actually really tough to share their stories, honor their journey and success, but also not create a scenario of voyeurism.
A lot of startups, I find, they might get the story, like the case story. Let me tell you a story about Joseph, but they'll use a cartoon or they'll use an invented name. They'll use stock photography. And I always feel that although the elements of the story might be right, it's not convincing. And it definitely raises a bit of a red flag of like, couldn't you find one user to talk to you? I noticed that in your deck, you really don't talk about your technology and your platform. Maybe it's because this wasn't a hardcore investor pitch. It was at a conference. You're really pitching more in general. But even for your investor pitch, how much do you show or not show technology? And did that ever make you uncomfortable, that you felt that maybe I should show more product features? Maybe I should talk more about my tech stack? How important is that to you?
It's an interesting one, because I swing. One moment I feel exceedingly uncomfortable, then the other moment I feel really confident in the sense of right. Our presentations are always dominated by our members, and you see their faces all over it. But I've run 4 companies before this. They've all been software companies. I'm used to a dozen different screenshots or videos and animations, and we don't do that much. I think in that presentation, there was just the one slide, and we even layered them to not emphasize it. The reality is that our members are coming to us both for the technology that drives the experience, but moreover, that sense of community that's supported by it. So actually, even our members, when they come to us, they don't want to see the tech, they don't want to see the software. They really think about who they're interacting with. And so we do unpack it. Like, how does the technology drive lower acquisition costs, better retention rates, all of that. But the conversation is ultimately about the outcomes for our members. And so I think part of it, for me especially, but for our whole team, is that idea of like, we've talked about the tech for so long, and now we don't talk about it at all. And so that switch can feel jarring.
So tell me a little bit about in what versions or iterations of your pitch and story haven't worked in the past. Like, have you ever tried something and it just really didn't work out? Because we're seeing a quite advanced version of your pitch, but I'm interested in all the uglier ones beforehand.
We're lucky in that we honed in on the member stories pretty quickly. So we didn't have as many that fell flat, but we definitely did. I think the one that landed worst was when we did index on the technology. We started the company with a sales enablement technology. And when we launched Uvaro, that meant we had great tech for delivering training. We had a wealth of information about what kind of training and content worked, so we could deliver really exceptional curriculum. And we had a tool that let people engage with training in a really novel and unique way. And so one of the first versions of our pitches really emphasized the idea that we have this unique asset, this unique insight. And it was like, here's the software, the tech, the data that drove all of this. And it really just came across like we didn't know what direction we were going, and
Right.
now people have jobs. It
Yeah.
didn't feel very cohesive at all.
So, often when I talk to somebody and they're like, oh, I'm really struggling with my story, it's usually not they're just bad storytellers. It's they're pivoting, they're trying to figure things out, and sounds like a bit like that's what happened to you.
It was very much like that. And I think it made it worse in that for like a lot of founders, I'm very technical in background. If anyone does the personality types, the thinker versus feel, I'm like way on the thinking side. And
Interesting.
it's been fun going along this journey with my team where we have a great diversity of personality types and just being overwhelmed by the impact our members have on our team and seeing that every day has been a really good learning journey for me as a person. And
Yeah.
the way I pitch now and the way I share a story is totally different than how I would have approached it. And
Yeah.
I think a lot of it's indicative of our change in strategy, but also my changes as a person.
Until you said that, I mean, I know your background is technical, but you definitely do not come across as highly technical. Like the one word that in my mind when I heard you live was, this is somebody who's got such strong empathy. And that's the reason I reached out and wanted to chat. One final question. If you could give one piece of advice to a founder struggling to tell their story for their pitch deck, for their sales deck, for their elevator pitch, what would that one piece of advice be?
We speak a lot about finding customers who use our tools and have that aha moment. Find that and then like dig into that as hard as you can. Find those stories where someone has that moment of excitement, relief, and figure out how to fold that into your talk. Because you can find that emotional reaction and then fold that into your own language and your own experience, like truly empathize with them, it's going to make it way easier to craft a compelling story.
Amazing. Thank you so much for doing this, Joseph.
It's my pleasure. Thanks so much for having me, Raymond.